to the fourth branch program. Glad you can make it. I am MD. This program is dedicated exclusively for those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. Stay tuned as we begin the discussion of a very important, interesting, and enlightening topic. Hope to hear from you soon. Happy listening. Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the fourth branch program, the place for common sense. Welcome. Today we have three very important topics that we'd like to discuss. The first one we have been talking about is the reading of the Mueller's report, line by line, page by page. We do not add nor subtract. The second thing we'd like to discuss is, of course, Healthcare 2020. It's a way of reminding ourselves that it's not just the selection of a candidate to be the next president of the United States, but also your healthcare, your health is on the ballot. If you have a loved one, or if you are an individual who may fall under the category of those with pre-existing condition, it is a program you might want to pay attention to. And we will also take a look at what's in the news. Well, we don't mean that. We mean important items in the news that we'd like to emphasize here on the fourth branch. Items that have some bigger importance than just the daily news. You are on the fourth branch program, the place for common sense. As such, we will treat topics which impact your lives and which impact the lives of everyone in the United States of America. We'll be back. Let's begin today with Obamacare. Well, the conversation about Obamacare has been pretty much not sure the proper words to use to have a conversation about Obamacare. But for sake of conversation, we say that, well, this conversation has actually beaten me down to the point that, have you ever felt that you've done everything that you're supposed to do and yet nothing happens? It's almost like you waste your time trying to make something work. In the end, you look and you think, why did I lose all this time? Because you don't see any progress being done. You trying to figure out exactly, are you the only one in the environment you're in who understand, who are concerned, or is it time for you to simply just do like everybody else? Well, if you ever felt that way, then you're not alone. sometimes I actually feel that way. And the irony of the whole thing is because, well, the business I'm in should give me the incentive to consume as much information, good or bad, to try to dissect those information and to filter them to in such a way that, well, I can come here and talk about a topic that may provide just enough for understanding or for someone who is interested to make decision. And yet, just like most people who have found themselves in the predicament of feeling overwhelmed, sometimes that's actually just the way I feel. And talking about Obamacare is one such. Now, in this program, I have mentioned many times that for several decades, Republican, in general, the Republican legislators, they have worked steadily, systematically, continuously against the constituent. And I don't mean that as just a statement. We have been preparing for this program a series in which we will go as far back as 100 years to show you that what we just mentioned is not just a statement, it's actually a matter of fact that for 100 years, a century, that we have data, we have evidence that the Republican legislators have always worked against the interests of the constituent. Now, the irony of the whole thing, the constituent don't seem to realize it and are not able to figure that out is because Republican legislators, they are very good at messaging. If you hear one Republican say something, no matter how wrong or blatantly false it is, you can rest assured they all will continue to repeat it. And that's something that's actually, me personally, is sent chill down my spine because there was one individual who actually the world hates with a passion that has exactly that kind of approach. That was Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler actually even has a mantra for those around him. If you tell a big enough lie and tell it frequently enough, it will be believed. And for 100 years, we have documented that the approach that the Republican Party legislators have used in order to keep their constituent under their grips. And the reason it works is because a study has also found that in general, Republicans and Republican-leaning constituents are more likely to act on emotion than on logic. And this is not me saying that. It's study after study after study. In fact, even in this program, we had a series that we made that says, are Republicans dumber than Democrats? And in that series, that's probably 6-7 video where we show you that science show that Republicans process life-related matter with the right amygdala. Interestingly enough, right Republicans are labeled by most, even by themselves, as the group on the right. And it so happened Mother Nature may either have a sense of humor or it happened to be just a coincidence that Republicans and Republican-leaning constituents process life-related information with the right amygdala, which so happened, interestingly enough, that only process very simplistic information. It's black or white. It's bad, good. That's the way that Republican constituent, and no matter what their level of education is. Interestingly enough, Democrats, on the other hand, process information with the left postula of the brain. See, Mother Nature does have a sense of humor. And what that means is that's a part of your brain that processes information in a logical manner. Now, before you run with it and say, here's what that guy, that fool that I've been watching said, it's specific to life-related matters. That's why you see the way that Republicans pass legislation, they base it on the emotion aspect of their constituent. That's why today the subject of abortion has a better than average chance of becoming a big problem for Democrats, because Republicans who are in control of whatever, Senate, Congress, governorship, mayorship, etc., they are very good. The Republican leaders, they are very good at exploiting, if you like, the emotion, the simplicity of mind of their constituent. And because of that, they almost assure that they will keep their job no matter what they do, regardless of whether they do anything for the Republican constituent, because as long as they can satisfy that craving of that emotion that says, I want things to be this way. And yesterday I did explain that what Republican legislators bet on is to do things that have no bearing on the country. All they do is pass legislation that address emotional aspect of their constituent, such as, for instance, abortion, which I asked the very question. Now, I'm not going to try to debate it again today because I talked about it a great deal yesterday, and if you're so interested, I strongly recommend that you visit the People Branch YouTube channel. I'll put that shortly. What that means is, for the sake of abortion, for instance, without having to go through the detail, the question that I asked, again, I'll say this to make certain that there is no ambiguity. I, personally, me, Mike Duchesne, I am against abortion. But what I'm about to say has nothing to do with my stand on abortion. Because the way that I see that anything for the country to work, people have to be able to, you have to be able to distinguish between preferences and things that affect, that impact the country. If you're not able to do that, and in fact, I shouldn't say if you're not, in fact, the very reason we are in the predicament we're in today is because most, especially on the Republican side, do not have that ability. And I don't mean that to be cocky. It's because, in fact, they process information, life-related matter, with the right amygdala of the brain, which gives them just one way of processing the information. So they rely a lot on emotion, and that's the reason whenever that you see Republican and Republican-leaning constituent take a position, the logic doesn't matter. You would never find that. Take a good example at Donald Trump being president. There was no logic to Donald Trump becoming president because all the facts were against him. Notice I say facts, not just what people were saying. All the facts, all the documents, all the evidence were there in order for people who use logic to say, no, we cannot have that guy as president of the United States. And yet, so that's a good case study for that very subject that I just mentioned, that interestingly enough, when I was debating that topic, I had a lot of Republicans who were pushing back, saying that it cannot be right. Of course it is right, because it's not something that I happen to say it's studied and it shows, and there are 2 decades worth of studies for people across the spectrum in terms of different age bracket, different level of education. So the study doesn't show that education has any bearing on that behavior. So the Republican legislators, they exploit that. They exploit that weakness from their Republican constituent, and they're able to preserve their job, because as long as they can feed that craving to massage the Republican constituent emotions, ego, then they will continue to keep their job. And you notice that the reason that I took healthcare is because, yes, you may recall when the Healthcare Act was proposed in 2010, there was almost a widespread protest in the Republican camp against Obamacare. Now, the main thing to remember about those protests is because everybody was going on, it's a death panel, it's going to kill job, and so on and so forth. All those are emotional items that the Republican legislators, as well as the lobbyists, special interest group, pay people to be on the street to do those kind of things. So the Republican constituent bought into it. And 2 years later, they all will find out that, well, they were wrong. Because nothing that they believe that they told them was about Obamacare, nothing was true. And yet, the reason they all oppose it, and all the Republicans who live in a state that were governed by Republicans did not have the opportunity to sign up for a healthcare system that would protect their loved one from being rejected for pre-existing condition problem. But they bought it because Republican legislators, Republican leaders, they exploit the Republican constituent weaknesses, which is emotion, anger, frustration. And in the 2018 midterm election, they tried to do exactly the same thing. We had on record, and which we also just after the 2018 midterm election, we had a couple of episodes in which we show you the individual Republican congressmen and senator that were against Obamacare since the day that act was passed. Now they came on the campaign trail and say they're going to protect Obamacare. And we know that wasn't true, because they all, for 8 years, they worked steadily against Obamacare. But because they realized that the constituents have found out that they were lying to them. So Healthcare 2020, here's the reason that I bring that every time that I have a chance. It's because you may have heard, almost like you have heard, Donald Trump on the campaign trail telling people that if you re-elect him, there is going to be a healthcare system in which you will be protected from pre-existing condition rejection. That's what he's proposing. That the same thing that you currently have under Obamacare is saying that, yes, if he gets re-elected, they're going to try to pass such a legislation. Now, I always tell people, is the rule of thumb. Anything that you hear that Donald Trump says is a lie. And I don't mean that as just a matter of speaking, I mean that literally. In fact, that very statement that is going around telling people is a blatant lie. And here's why. He says, I'm paraphrasing, he says that you're going to have a beautiful healthcare system that's better than Obamacare, that's also going to protect you for pre-existing condition. That's what he says, and people behind him cheer, which means they believe him. And that's also another point in the discussion of Republican constituent. They being exploited not only because of the way they process information, but also because of their naiveness and their gullibility. They all still continue to believe whatever Donald Trump said. despite the fact that by now they should all know that whatever Donald Trump says is a lie. But the healthcare part is even more important, and here's the reason. It is because while Donald Trump is telling you is going to have a healthcare which would protect you from pre-existing condition coverage as well, but in the court, as he's telling you that this is a currently ongoing situation. That's something he's going to do, that's something he's thinking about doing, but something that's currently going on. While he's telling all those people behind him what I just mentioned about the pre-existing condition, he has a group of lawyers in the courtroom arguing in front of the judge to do the following. One, to try to get rid of Obamacare altogether. Okay, that's what Republican has been doing, then there is no surprise there. But here's the part that's the most important to keep in mind. That's why I said your health care, yours or your loved one, will suffer if you believe what Donald Trump is telling you. If you, for some reason, you still continue to think Donald Trump says anything that is true. Now, trying to get rid of Obamacare is not anything new because the Republican has been doing that. But here's the kicker. The second part of Donald Trump legal team argument is this. They're saying to the judges, even if you don't kill Obamacare altogether, we think, that's their argument, not me, we think that the coverage for pre-existing condition is illegal. This is the argument that they're currently making in front of a court, in front of a judge. Now, if the judge buys their argument, guess what? Coverage for pre-existing condition will end and it will be illegal. Now, if they're making that argument, let's say for sake of conversation that the judge goes along with it, now automatically coverage for pre-existing condition becomes illegal. Donald Trump would not be able to provide you with coverage for pre-existing condition. Because that's the argument, that's the exact argument is making, that it's illegal. So how do you reconcile is telling you is going to give that to you when his team of lawyers in the court are making argument that it's illegal? As I mentioned to Republican before, something that I cannot wrap my brain around, well, actually, I do understand because of the way that their brain works, but it's still impossible for me to grasp how simple these things are. And yet, it almost like it takes explaining. There is not enough explaining to try to convince a fellow Republican that their Republican leaders are not working on their behalf. They're not. Everything, you don't even have to go 100 years as we're trying to do, because we're trying to bring that to you. Just take the 2 years that Donald Trump has been in the Oval Office and see what the Republicans have done, whether any of that is to the benefit of the constituent. Take any example that you want, and you will start noticing a pattern that clearly tells you that your Republican legislators are working against you. They tell you they were going to give you a big tax cut, $1.5 trillion. They take most of that. 90% of that goes to a large corporation and wealthy individual. 90%. And yet, they sold you on the idea it was going to be a tax cut for you. Yes, you may receive $40 or $60 extra on your paycheck, but that's peanut in comparison to what they use and give to the large corporation. But here's the kicker. That's why I said, for some reason, Republican constituents cannot get to understand that their legislators They simply lie to them. They have a way of rationalizing what they're telling their constituent. But despite years, decades of evidence, that's what they're doing. For some reason, the Republican constituent continue to believe everything that they say. And good for the Republican legislators, because every time the Republican constituent go to the poll, they vote them back in office. But beware, in 2020, if you think that you're going to get coverage for pre-existing condition for yourself or your loved one under Donald Trump, you are completely, and by completely I don't mean somewhat, I don't mean a little, I mean completely mistaken, because he is currently making the argument in the court today that pre-existing condition coverage is illegal. So if something is illegal, you just cannot get it. As it is probably or should be obvious at this point, the 2020 presidential election, we cannot just see it as just another presidential election, because the soul of the country is in the balance. For the first time in the history of the United States of America, we have an individual in the Oval Office whose words mean absolutely nothing. He lies about everything that he says, everything that he does. And he gets everyone around him to lie. Everyone who works for the Trump administration lies about everything. That is unprecedented. And Trump himself, he just cannot not lie. But that's not the biggest problem. Is the fact that all those individuals who supported him, who voted for him, continue to listen to an individual whose words are the words of the devil, literally speaking. Isn't the Bible telling us that the devil is a liar? I even wonder sometimes if the devil lies as much as Donald Trump does. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The Fourth Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Stay with us. We will be right back. we will try to read the Mueller report right after this particular segment. Now, we're going to take a quick look at a couple of items that are in the news. As we mentioned at the top of the program, there are plenty of items in the news, but we are only interested in a couple of them that are worthy of being presented to you here on the Full Branch to talk about the importance of those news. Stay with us. We'll be back in just 30 seconds. Well, you may have heard or read or probably part of conversation that Donald Trump is seeking for $12 billion in subsidies to protect farmers. Now, here's the interesting thing about this particular news. Actually, two very interesting things. You may recall or may even be part of those who have always been against government handout because you hate the idea of having to pay for anybody because, well, why should you? Now, this particular news is nothing new. It happened before, in which Donald Trump look for places, either find or borrow money to distribute money to farmers. But here's the reason. It is something that he, Donald Trump, has caused. Every time he got into a war with China, the farmers pay a price, which means their products cannot be exported, or it costs more to export their product, and so on. So they find themselves in a bind. But Donald Trump is using the government in order to hide the fact that he's doing something that's hurting the country. So in order not to lose those farmers, he's taking money from us, other taxpayers, and say to those farmers, see, I'm taking care of you. Now, you may not understand the implication of that. It is one thing when tragedy happens, like there is a hurricane. There is some natural tragedy that the government has to get to find money somewhere. Even if the government has to borrow money, has to really put the load on the taxpayers. Although we may not like it, but it would be understandable. But when you have the very individual that's causing the problem, but in order not to lose the support of the farmers, now he went and tried to get money from other places in order to tell the farmers, you see, I'm not just doing that and I'm hurting you. I'm giving you money so that you can re-elect me. That's not acceptable in a democracy. It is not acceptable. Now, you as a Republican, you may think it's okay, but it is not okay. Because we're paying the price for somebody's mistakes. That's what all the taxpayers. It's not something that just happened by accident. It's something that is caused by Donald Trump's action. Now, nobody can argue that there is a need for something to be done in terms of trade with other partners, not just with China, with other trade partners. But when a president, when an administration takes steps that hurt the country or that hurt part of the country, and now you putting the burden on the taxpayers, that's not acceptable. Because I can tell you, I heard enough complaint from Republican legislators about the fact that, well, we have to cut entitlement. This is what entitlement is. But that entitlement is actually worse because it is caused by someone. Nobody was born to feel that, oh, I'm going to be poor so that I can collect a food stamp. But what's happening to the farmers today did not happen by accident. It happened because Donald Trump caused it to happen. But what's worse is the fact that we have Republican legislators that are simply going along with everything. So there is no Republican legislator anymore to exercise oversight on the executive branch. All this idea about exercising oversight, it's only when Democrats are around, when Democrats occupy the Oval Office. But if it's something, no matter how much damage is being caused to the nation, Republicans simply shrug it off. And if you think as a Republican it's okay, it is not okay, because when you have members of the legislative branch acting that way, it is not any different than living in a banana republic. Because that's what an authoritarian regime looks like, that everybody on that individual camp side with the person. They don't care whether the person burn the country down. Doesn't matter. And that's what your Republican legislators are doing. And that subsidies, the $12 billion subsidy that the Republicans legislators are simply going along with, is just one more example of what we as a country are going through under the Trump administration, under the Republican regime. Bill Barr, remember that guy? Well, we can say with a lot of certainty that Bill Barr is Donald Trump's personal attorney, because he's been doing his bidding since before Donald Trump. In fact, that's the reason Donald Trump appointed him as Attorney General, because outside he sent a public letter to explain to Donald Trump, I am your guy. And as Attorney General, again, that's another travesty in the country, that we have an Attorney General whose primary job is to the nation, but instead doing Donald Trump bidding. Now, the Attorney General is going to have investigation done about the investigators who look into the Russia meddling in the 2016 presidential election. If you're not concerned yet about what's going on in the country, and if you are a Republican and you think, oh, that's fine, because that's exactly what we want. I've been saying this, and I'll say it again. Your children, your grandchildren will not live in a country that has democracy in it, because Republicans have been working to make certain of that. What do you think? Take the extra step to understand what's going on. Okay, you think it's okay. Now Democrats come and do the same thing, then you automatically don't have you don't have a democracy in the country anymore. So if you think it's okay, then when Democrats do it, then you should think it's okay too, right? But it's not, because there is no one who lives in a democracy who would accept those type of things. That's the way you have to find out whether what your Republican legislators, what your Republican elected officials are doing, whether it's okay, is for you to ask the very question: would I accept that from the other side? That's really a very simple exercise. You don't have to be a genius. It is a very simple exercise to make. Ask yourself the question: would I accept the other side to do that? And if your answer is no, then you know your Republican legislators, your elected officials are not doing the job for which they were elected. So it's time for you to act. That's what patriotism is. Any patriot, you cannot just sit there and watch perverted men destroy the Constitution. You cannot, because, well, it's your country. It's either you don't care that your children would live in a country without democracy, or you simply do not grasp what the Republicans are doing today is very detrimental to the nation. The legislative branch, Congress and the Senate, primary duty is to exercise oversight on the executive branch. That's what keeps a country, that's what preserves democracy in a country. In case you don't understand any of what I just said, without that, there is no democracy. If the Republicans do it, and then the Democrats do it, then you definitely do not live in a country which can claim to have democracy. The Attorney General, that guy you're looking at, is not supposed to be Trump's attorney, but he is. And it is bad for the United States of America. Now, the last piece of news that I want to share with you, and that actually happened to be good news. Those two guys, Mike Brown and Rick Scott, they both Republicans. Rick Scott was governor of Florida, now he's senator representing the state of Florida along with Marco Rubio. Mike Brown is a senator from Indiana. Now, those two guys just introduced, listen to this. As a matter of fact, I'm elated to hear that. They just introduced a legislation which would it's a proposal. It's a legislative proposal to implement a bunch of reform, but one of such reform, which I think is overdue, is to put a term limit on Congress and the Senate, meaning people like Mitch McConnell, who have done more wrong than good to the nation, would not have been in Washington still. Now, I don't know the detail as to how much time. Oh, actually, I do. They want, according to the proposal, they want legislator not to be able to spend more than 12 years in Washington, which means for Congress, yes, they want the Congress and the Senate to have no more than 12 years term limits. I like it. I will take a closer look at that proposal. Now, despite it is an exciting thing, because I don't think I would live long enough to see Republicans propose something like that. I would most likely expect Democrats to take that kind of initiative and do. And yet, yes, these two guys are Republicans. They're the one proposing. As I mentioned, there is a bunch of other items in the legislative proposal, but one particular item that I personally express a great interest in is the term limit for the House and the Senate. 12 years, no more. Mitch McConnell would have been long gone. And that would be for good reason, because people who have spent that much time in Washington cannot serve the country. They've been there too long. They not only they become complacent, but guess what? Special interest group, lobbyists, know those people are there forever, and they can harness them, and they can do things that are detrimental to the constituent, and they don't care because they get campaign finance money, and they able to survive any type of election or re-election problem. Mitch McConnell is one such person. You may recall that the last time Mitch McConnell had to face another a challenger, money came from outside the state of Kentucky to help Mitch McConnell keep his job. Yes, to Mike Brown and Rick Scott, I said it is about time. And I am 100% behind you with such legislative proposal. But my excitement has to be contained, because I already know Washington. The chances for this thing to go through may take some time. Now, if the Democrats join in, hopefully they do, if the Democrats join in, there is a better than average chance that that can pass. And I said, good for Rick Scott and good for Mike Brown. And I hope other Republicans join them in making certain that this become legislation in Washington. Great job, Rick and Mike. If you are a patriot, you cannot not be outraged, because this is not a matter of being Democrat or being Republican, because the very reason that our democracy survives is because of that very structure of our government. The minute that you don't have any oversight, then at that point, the idea of democracy in the United States of America ceases to exist. So if you are a Republican and you think it's okay, then you too are no patriot. There is no other word of saying it. No matter what you hear people saying, trying to sugarcoat, trying to go around to explain it to you, that's all it means. If you are okay with what is currently going on with Donald Trump, with the Republican Party, you categorically are not a patriot. And no matter what you think of yourself, you are not a patriot. Because a patriot is someone who would give or who would make sacrifice sometimes of his or her own life, let alone sacrifice a political party in order to preserve the democracy, in order to preserve the Constitution, in order to preserve the rule of law. So if you cannot do that, don't talk to anyone about being patriot, because you are no patriot. The Mueller's report is next. The next section in the Mueller's report reads as follows. We're still reading on the executive summary. Now we are on the special counsel investigation section. On May 17, 2017, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, then serving as acting Attorney General for the Russia's investigation, following the recusal of former Attorney General Jeff Sessions on March 2, 2016, appointed the special counsel to investigate Russian interference with the 2016 presidential election and related matters. Office of the Deputy Attorney General Order number 3915-2017, appointment of special counsel to investigate Russian interference with the 2016 presidential election and related matters, May 17, 2017. Appointment order. Relying on the authority vested in the acting Attorney General, including 28 U.S.C. 509, 510, and 515, the acting Attorney General ordered the appointment of a special counsel in order to discharge the acting Attorney General's responsibility to provide supervision and management of the Department of Justice and to ensure a full and thorough investigation of the Russian government's effort to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. Appointment order, parenthesis introduction. The special counsel, the order stated, is authorized to conduct the investigation confirmed by then FBI Director James B. Comey in testimony before the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence on March 20th, 2017, including Item 1. Any links and/or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the campaign of President Donald Trump, and Item 2. Any matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation, and Item 3. Any other matters within the scope of 28 C.F.R. 600.4 parenthesis A. Appointment order, parenthesis B. Section 600.4 affords the special counsel the authority to investigate and prosecute federal crimes committed in the course of and with intent to interfere the special counsel's investigation, such as perjury, obstruction of justice, destruction of evidence, and intimidation of witnesses. 28 C.F.R. 600.4 parenthesis A. The authority to investigate any matters that arose directly from the investigation. Appointment order B. 2. covers similar crime that may have occurred during the course of the FBI confirmed investigation before the special counsel appointment. If the special counsel believes it is necessary and appropriate, the order further provided the special counsel is authorized to prosecute federal crimes arising from the investigation of these matters. ID, parenthesis C. Finally, the acting Attorney General made applicable Section 600.4 through 600.10 of Title 28 of the Code of Federal Regulation. ID, parenthesis D. The acting Attorney General further clarified the scope of the special counsel's investigatory authority in two subsequent memoranda. A memorandum dated August 2, 2017 explained that the appointment order had been worded categorically in order to permit its public release without confirming specific investigation involving specific individuals. It then confirmed that the special counsel had been authorized since his appointment to investigate allegations that three Trump campaign officials, Carter Page, Paul Manafort, and George Papadopoulos, committed a crime or crimes by colluding with Russian government officials with respect to the Russian government effort to interfere with the 2016 presidential election. The memorandum also confirmed the special counsel authority to investigate certain other matters, including two additional sets of allegations involving Manafort, crimes arising from payments he received from the Ukrainian government and crimes arising from his receipt of loan from a bank whose CEO was then seeking a position in the Trump administration. Allegation that Papadopoulos committed a crime or crimes by acting as an unregistered agent of the Israeli government, and four sets of allegations involving Michael Flynn, the former national security advisor to Donald Trump. On October 20th, 2017, the acting Attorney General confirmed in a memorandum the special counsel investigative authority as to several individuals and entities. First, as part of a full and thorough investigation of the Russian government's effort to interfere in the 2016 presidential election, the special counsel was authorized to investigate the pertinent activities of Michael Cohen, Richard Gates, and one name is blocked here, Roger Stone, and another name is blocked. Confirmation of the authorization to investigate such individual, the memorandum stress does not suggest that the special counsel has made a determination that any of them has committed a crime. Second, with respect to Michael Cohen, the memorandum recognized the special counsel authority to investigate leads related to Cohen's establishment and use of Essential Consultant LLC to, inter alia, receive funds from Russian-backed entities. Third, the memorandum memorialized the special counsel authority to investigate individuals and entities who were possibly engaged in jointly undertaking activities with existing subject of the investigation, including Paul Manafort. Finally, the memorandum described an FBI investigation open before the special counsel appointment into allegation that then Attorney General Jeff Sessions made false statement to the United States Senate, and confirmed the special counsel authority to investigate that matter. The special counsel structured the investigation in view of his power and authority to exercise all investigative and prosecutorial function of any United States attorney. 28 C.F.R. 600.6. Like a U.S. Attorney's Office, the Special Counsel Office considered a range of classified and unclassified information available to the FBI in the course of the office's Russia investigation, and the office structured that work around evidence for possible use in prosecution of federal crimes, assuming that one or more crimes were identified that warranted prosecution. There was substantial evidence immediately available to the special counsel at the inception of the investigation in May of 2017, because the FBI had by that time already investigated Russian election interference for nearly 10 months. The special counsel office exercised its judgment regarding what to investigate and did not, for instance, investigate every public report of a contact between the Trump campaign and Russian affiliated individuals and entities. The office has concluded its investigation into links and coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. Certain proceedings associated with the office's work remain ongoing. After consultation with the Office of the Deputy Attorney General, the office has transferred responsibility for those remaining issues to other components of the Department of Justice and FBI. Appendix D lists those transfers. Two district courts confirm the breadth of the special counsel authority to investigate Russia election interference and links and/or coordination with the Trump campaign. See United States versus Manafort, 312 F.Sup.3D 60, 79-83, parentheses D.D.C. 2018, semicolon. United States versus Manafort, 321 F.Sup for supplement, I suppose, Sup 3D 640-655, parentheses E.D. VA 2018. In the course of conducting that investigation, the office periodically identified evidence of potential criminal activity that was outside the scope of the special counsel authority established by the acting Attorney General. After consultation with the Office of the Deputy Attorney General, the office referred that evidence to appropriate law enforcement authorities, principally other components of the Department of Justice, and to the FBI. Appendix D summarizes Donald Trump is wrong to call the media the enemy of the people. Throughout history, dictators, authoritarians have always tried to delegitimize the media in order to get away with corruption, scandal, and yes, even abuse. Adolf Hitler did exactly the same thing in 1933, accusing the media of fabrication. Journalists are not in the business of fairness. Our only business, is to be objective. It is our duty to hold Trump and every administration accountable. Today, it is urgent. It is necessary. It is critical. Our very freedom depends on it. I hope this presentation was of some use to you or some importance to you. If not, well, you know what to do. Send us comment, criticism, suggestion. Let us know how we're doing or what can we possibly done to make it better for you. In the meantime, if you have a topic you would like us to talk about, let us know. We will research it. We will debate it right here on the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. See you next time. The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website, located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.
Provider, he be my protector. Somebody go higher. Yo, baby, I need Pabeka. My God be my provider. He be my protector. Somebody go higher. Oh yeah, me nyawo biampo boni. I don't do them anything. People say me another day. If you wish me well, I wish you well. Me nyawo biampo boni. I don't do them anything. People say me another day. If you wish me well, I wish you well. Eva, Eva. I Love me now, no be later. No be later. Eba, eba. I speed the fight for the paper. Love me now, no be later. Yeah. Nana nyami kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama. Nana nyami be kebi mama, kebi mama. Nana nyami kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama. Nana nyami be kebi mama. Me nyawo biampo body. I don't do them anything. People say me another day. If you wish me well, I wish you well. Me nyawo biampo body. I don't do them anything. People say me another day. If you wish me well, I wish you well.
You munyai. Buti make it come and hot I see I record with a stolen mic. Ubi see my phone coming here kasi na two men pie. Ubi banya machine I destroy the soul inside. My baby I'm on a monkai.
Shame on you. I pray my God go favor you. What we they do be deja vu. Omunya yanke fieje do. Shame on you. I pray my God go favor you. What we they do be deja vu. Omunya yanke fieje do. Nana nyami kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama. Nana nyami be kebi mama, kebi mama. Nana nyami kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama, kebi mama. Nana nyami be kebi mama. Me nyawo biampo body. I don't do them anything. People say me another day. If you wish me well, I wish you well. Me nyawo biampo body.